Hi, I'm Tim Bradner. We're at the University of Alaska Fairbanks campus at Governor Bill Walker's conference on the sustainability of Alaska in the future. And I'm with Pat Pitney, the governor's budget director, and Pat's kind of the master and one of the masters of ceremonies here at this conference, trying to figure out how to fill a multi-billion-dollar budget hole and what possible new sources of revenue we might have. Pat, how is this conference going? You just came out of of sessions with people working with an interactive model, and I guess there's a lot of hair pulling and teeth gnashing going on as to how people, this is what the legislature does all the time, of course, but citizens are actually trying to do this now. Right. What's going on over there?
You know, so what we wanted to start the conversation for all Alaskans, and so this is our kickoff dialogue. And so yesterday was about what is the right size of government, and people went through the exercise of what services do you want, and what services are critical, which ones maybe are less critical, and that exercise was telling for the group. Coming into today, we're asking, okay, now given that set of services, what revenues will Alaskans be willing to talk about to bridge the gap between our $2 billion in oil revenue and the, whatever it is, it's $5 billion budget today, and based on the service discussions yesterday, maybe you could get it down a little bit, but it was tight. Everybody realized that, for instance, in capital, we don't have really a capital budget this year, and that probably there's certain things that are going to go down, but other things will have to go up as well. So this morning's discussion on revenue, it was really hard for some groups to get past the cost curve, even after an entire day of dialogue yesterday about the services and so forth. So it took a while to get people to move from, well, what's a 10% cut? And so put a 10% cut in. You want a higher cut? Go higher.
And this is working with an interactive model where they can see immediately the effects.
The effect. And so the line would move this far, and the revenue line is still way down here. So after that, we said, okay, now we still have to fill this gap. So you can move the cost line down, but the reality is there's still, a $2.5 billion gap or more that has to have a revenue discussion around it. And so that it was some groups just didn't want to quite get into talking about different revenue sources, whether it be income tax or, permanent fund earnings or sales tax. They just didn't want to start talking. But after a few minutes, then they'd start talking about it again. Yeah.
But if they started with a 10% cut, just for frame of reference, what was this year's cut? You folks went in with proposals, and then the legislature modified it. But what did we wind up with?
So the governor
percentage-wise?
The governor put in for state agencies about a 6% reduction. The legislature has come back and cut state executive branch agencies by 10%. Of course, court and legislature by less, but executive branches by 10%. But the agency operating budgets is a small piece of the overall state spending. Right. You have capital, you have tax credits, you have debt service, you have retirement payments. So really, at that, it was an $800 million reduction from last year to this year, all things in.
But half of that was the capital budget.
Over half of that was having no capital budget this year.
Yeah, which is a one-time deal.
Really is a one-time deal. Maybe you could get by with it a second time, but it wouldn't be prudent for our state.
So if we had a $400 million approximate reduction of other non-capital state dollars, percentage-wise, is that 5% or?
It's close to 10%.
That's 10%. Mm-hmm. Okay. So people in the conversations this morning that you were at, people kind of started out, what if we had to do another 10% cut? Right. What would that? Did they go on to 20%? Did anybody?
Nobody went on past that.
Well, maybe that was one impact of yesterday's conversation.
Yeah, I think so.
Was what where are we right now? That's interesting.
But there was also this feeling that over time that costs wouldn't rise. That somehow costs and population won't rise. So there would, and we were saying that there is an inflationary and a population pressure to the cost of government. But
yeah.
It's an interesting dialogue, and the fortunate thing is you have 30 people or so in a room from all, they're randomly selected. So you have an oil person in, you have a fish person, you have a teacher, so you have a very nice mix of, but this is what I think, this is what I think.
Yeah. So. The governor mentioned that this conversation will go on during the summer, and are you going to be involved in that? Or?
We very much, yeah. I take this as one of my main jobs over the summer, into the fall, and possibly into the winter. It's the legislature's decision of what revenues, how we address the budgetary gap, and so what we want to do is start the conversation. So it's an open dialogue in the public.
Would there be more, perhaps smaller versions of these kind of meetings?
Yeah. What we're asking these participants, or will be asking these participants to do is how can we take this dialogue to your community, to your interest group, to your place of work, and then having myself, Commissioner Hoffbeck, and several others to go out and have the conversation. And we're also hoping that there's going to be a certain number of people from this group that have participated that would be willing to take the conversation on their own out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Pat, thank you very much, Pat Pitney.
Yeah, thank you.
And back to the conference.
Back to the conversation.
Yes. Tim Bradner, thank you for joining us.